I mean, my take on HIIT, and let's put this in context. I'm not an exercise physiologist, but I recognise that there could be some quite significant physiological benefits to anything. I mean, to me, we've known about this kind of dose response and so on for ever since we've studied exercise science, haven't we? That higher intensity will give you additional benefits. Fine, okay. Now, from a behavioral point of view, when I first came across this, and people were suggesting this was the best thing since sliced bread and whatever, I was thinking, well, hang on a minute. What about for public health? Public health, remember, means getting as much benefit across the population as possible. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, this doesn't make sense at all. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to be impactful across a large population. So Alan Batterham and Alan from the UK, who was doing some HIIT research at the time, we debated this at a conference and we wrote it up as a paper. And it's actually had a reasonable number of citations. He was in favour, of course. I was against, from a public health perspective. Now, what we've now done with Paddy Ekikakis, who's a tremendous exercise psychologist now at Michigan State University. So Paddy and I have just put together this paper. He's done a series, actually. I've just contributed to one of the papers around adherence. And what you tend to find is that in these studies on HIIT, claims are made that the adherence rates to HIIT are as good as, if not better than, moderate intensity physical activity, which, to be honest, doesn't make any sense to me at all. Our subtitle of this paper is Extraordinary Claims in the Literature. But anyway, park that to one side. The key thing is that if you look at what they actually do in these studies, people who are in the HIIT condition gradually reduce their exercise intensity. They cannot sustain that. And so you end up comparing moderate intensity with high intensity, which start out there and end up here. They're virtually doing the same thing.
Oh, so when they look at the people and they say, yes, they've adhered and they've complied and they've continued to do it, they're not doing it at as high an intensity as they were meant to be.
No.
And do they not comment on that, the authors?
No. And in fact, there are a lot of anomalies in the reporting of data, particularly in the meta-analyses. And some of the moderate intensity groups actually slightly increase their intensity. So you get even more of an effect of coming together. So I just think we need to be a little bit more circumspect and a bit more critical at looking at that literature. Because they've also claimed that people enjoy HIIT more than they enjoy moderate. Intuitively, I just don't believe that. I'm not convinced that the way they measure enjoyment is the right way. I don't know whether you know, but if you look at some of those enjoyment scales, they've got items in there about challenge and all the rest of it. Well, yeah, you've been challenged for sure. That doesn't necessarily mean you've enjoyed it. So I think the area, I'm not, so others have argued that it's part of a much wider array of physical activities that we can offer people. So in other words, we're giving people more choice. Fine. No, don't argue with that at all. I still don't believe that adherence is going to be very good over the duration.
Actually thinking, I guess it must be an individual difference, but also even within the individual. Because I was thinking, I used to be a distance runner and I used to love my interval sessions, right? And I used to find the easy ones boring. But I realized it's because I was trying to improve my race time. So I was actually, the intervals, even though they hurt, they were more like directly achieving my goal. Now that I'm not racing, I just ride the bike. I do intervals and it's hard and it pisses me off because I'm not actually racing for anything. So I just within myself,
that's right.
I was pro HIIT when I was training for running years ago, but now I'm sort of like, I'd rather do the lower intensities. I just thought it was kind of an interesting sort of.
And I also think, the fact that you were, let's say you were training and you're a competitive athlete and so on, that's not public health. That's you're the top X% who are in very good shape and are training, and that's fine. If people want to do HIIT for that, fine. But let's not,
I think actually my little discussion there about myself, that self-centered there, actually fits almost entirely with what you're saying. I'm doing more population health thing now. I'm doing my writing for health, for fitness, for health and longevity or whatever. I'm not training for anything. So I don't want to do HIIT. But when I'm actually training for something, I want to do HIIT. So I think that's kind of, it's ridiculous. It's n=1, but in a way it sort of makes sense.
No, it does. And some of my arguments about HIIT are somewhat anecdotal and somewhat sort of intuitive to me. It may not be intuitive to other people. But I think the evidence at the moment is still a little bit iffy about, they've made claims that I think are a little bit exaggerated. It's not to say HIIT can't do people some good, but, let's not get ahead of ourselves and say that people are going to adhere for longer, they're going to enjoy it more. I mean, if that's true, it flies in the face of all the stuff we've been doing in the past. I just don't believe it.